Senator Trueso.
Madam Pro Tem, Senators, the water transfers that were negotiated in 2003 that involve Southern California and the Colorado River and pretty much California's water supply are scheduled in 2017, which will increase the rate at which the Salton Sea declines. As a result, approximately 500,000 people living in the Coachella and Imperial Valleys, really extending into Arizona, Mexico, and all of Southern California, will be harmed by the estimated 33% increase in the amount of fine particulate matter that will be blown around the environment as a result of the exposed playa at the sea. This is expected to harm people's lives. It is expected to destroy important habitat for birds on their migratory routes along the Pacific Flyway. It's expected to also harm in the production of our food supply in all the agricultural production in these areas, which is one of the most fertile valleys in the United States. AB 1095 will require the Natural Resources Agency to report to the legislature by March 31st, 2016 on eligible shovel-ready projects for the Salton Sea. Identifying viable mitigation projects is necessary to address the health and habitat implications of reduced water inflow to the Salton Sea. This measure complements ongoing efforts by the administration to address this grave environmental concern, and it has received bipartisan support. This issue is one of California's biggest problems to people's health, to the environment, to our economy, and it needs to be treated as a priority by this legislature and the administration. We hope that we can all work together to help California resolve this impending disaster. I respectfully ask for your support today.
Thank you. Senator Stone.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to applaud my colleague from the Coachella Valley, Assemblyman Eduardo Garcia. The Salton Sea is an ecological potential disaster if we don't act. The sea has been able to maintain its existing shoreline through agreements that have been made in the past, including the Imperial Irrigation District that pumps water into the Salton Sea, maintaining the level. But in 2017, those agreements come to a halt. And then through natural evaporation and no water going in, this is going to create air quality issues for not just the Coachella Valley, but those of you that live northerly of the Salton Sea know when the heat gets up, the salinity gets high, we have fish kills, you can smell this horrible smell all the way up through Los Angeles County. From an ecological standpoint, it is home to over 400 migrating birds. We need to make sure we maintain the habitat for that important flyway. And so this should not be a partisan issue. We have bipartisan support for this. We need to fix the Salton Sea, and I encourage your aye vote to help us get us there. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion or debate? Any additional discussion or debate? Senator Trueso, would you like to close?
The Salton Sea can serve as an economic engine to our state or a liability. It can be an economic and environmental resource or a liability. It can help create revenue for our state, or it can help to create the problems that will dry up our state's revenue. We need to act. We need to act quickly. We need to start making improvements to the Salton Sea, and we can no longer wait. So I ask for everyone's support. Thank you.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Bates. Aye. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. Aye. Block. Aye. Canella. Aye. De Leon. Fuller. Gaines. Anderson. Aye to no. Galgiani. Aye. Glazer. Aye. Hall. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Hertzberg. I Hill. I Whistle. I Huff. I. Jackson. Jackson, I. Lotta. Jackson, I. Lotta. I. Leno. I. Leva. I. Lou. I. McGuire. I. Mendoza. I. Mitchell.
Aye.
I. Monning. I. Morlock. I. Morrell. I. Wynn. I. Nilsson. I. Pan. I. Pavley. Roth. I. Runner. I. Stone. I. Vidak. I. Wachowski. I. Wolk. Anderson. Anderson, no to I.
Senator Hueso moves the call. Moving on to file, here is the next series of file items, colleagues, so that you may prepare, that we will take up. File items 328, 329, 334, 337, 340, and 343. File item 328, Assembly Bill 1223. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Bill 1223 by Assemblymember O'Donnell, an act relating to emergency medical services.
Thank you, Senator Pan.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, AB 1223 by Assemblymember O'Donnell is the first step in addressing an ambulance patient offload time at hospital emergency departments. This bill defines the term ambulance patient offload time in statute and creates a statewide standard for measuring and reporting. When an EMS crew picks someone up in an ambulance, the crew is responsible for their care until they are signed over to a hospital emergency department. When there are delays in the admissions process, the crew must wait with their patients, sometimes for hours, until they can be admitted. When the EMS crews are delayed at the hospitals, they cannot respond to other emergency calls. As a result, EMS providers are forced to pull crews from other service areas, reducing coverage and causing a public safety risk. Unfortunately, there's currently no consensus among counties, hospitals, and local EMS agencies over what ambulance patient offload time is or how it should be measured. Without a common definition, the state cannot begin to identify the causes of the problem, let alone fix it. This bill creates this common vocabulary by defining ambulance patient offload time, requiring the California Emergency Medical Services Authority to devise, with stakeholder input and approval, a standard for its calculation by local EMS agencies, and allowing local EMS agencies to decide whether to use that standard to calculate, measure, and track offload time in their area. This bill is not a mandate on local agencies. It simply provides them a measurement tool, a consistent measurement tool that will be consistent across the state and allow people to better identify and solve the problems facing their community. Thank you so very much. Respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on file item 328? Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. Bates. Bell. I. Berryhill. Block. I. Canella. I. DeLeon. Fuller. I. Gaines. I. Galgioni. I. Glazer. I. Hall. I. Hancock. I. Hernandez. I. Hertzberg. I. Hill. I. Wesso. I. Huff. Jackson. I. Lotta. I. Leno. I. Leba. I. Lou. I. McGuire. I. Mendoza. I. Mitchell.
Aye.
I. Monning. I. Morlock. Morrell. Wynn. I. Nilsson. Pan. I. Pavley. Roth. I. Runner. Stone. I. Vidak. I. Wachowski. I. Wolk.
Senator Pan moves the call. Thank you. File item 329, Assembly Bill 1232. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Bill 1232 by Assemblymember Christina Garcia, an act relating to insurance.
Senator Hill.
Thank you, Madam President. AB 1232 is a bill sponsored by Insurance Commissioner Dave Jones, aiming to increase government efficiency. New applicants for insurance agent or producer licenses sometimes have their applications closed out after a background check by the Department of Insurance. An applicant may ask to have their case heard by an administrative law judge. The judge gives a proposed decision on the case that the insurance commissioner then upholds, denies, or modifies. The overwhelming majority of these cases are heard by the Office of Administrative Hearings in the Department of General Services. AB 1232 would allow the California Department of Insurance to use their own administrative law judges to hear appeals cases for new agents in order to streamline the hearing process. AB 1232 allows applicants to state their preference for whether their case is heard under General Services or the Department of Insurance. This bill would give new licensees, applicants more options and save the state money. I respectfully ask for an aye vote, members.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion or debate on this measure? Senator Gaines.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President and members. I want to thank Senator Hill for bringing this legislation forward, carrying it on behalf of the Department of Insurance. It should make things more efficient so that people can get through the process more quickly and move on. Thank you. Urge an aye vote.
Any further discussion or debate? Seeing none, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. I. Anderson. I. Bates. I. Bell. I. Berryhill. Block. I. Canella. I. De Leon. Fuller. Gaines. I. Galgioni. I. Glazer. I. Hall. I. Hancock. I. Hernandez. I. Hertzberg. I. Hill. I. Wesso. I. Huff. I. Jackson. I. Lara. I. Leno. I. Leva. I. Liu. I. McGuire. I. Mendoza. I. Mitchell. I. Monning. I. Morlock. I. Morrell. I. Wynn. I. Nielsen. Pan. I. Pavley. Roth. I. Runner. I. Stone. I. Vidak. I. Wykowski. I. Wolk. Berryhill, aye. Fuller, aye. Nielsen, aye.
Senator Hill moves the call. File item 334, Assembly Bill 434. Senator Hueso. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Bill 434 by Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia, an act relating to drinking water and declaring the urge thereof to take effect immediately.
Senator Hueso.
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem. Senators, AB 434 is a measure that will help protect the health and the safety of many families and communities throughout the state who are currently lacking access to clean, safe drinking water. This bill would allow for the use of filtration systems so families impacted by contaminants in their water can have clean and safe water to consume. In remote rural areas of the Coachella Valley and other parts of the state, arsenic is a naturally occurring element in the groundwater. It can lead to negative health impacts when consumed over prolonged periods, and additional measures need to be taken to remove it from the water supply. Many of these families live in disadvantaged communities. They lack the necessary resources to make investments in centralized water treatment facilities. This bill would ensure that communities who need access to clean drinking water are able to access it by allowing the use and installation of point-of-use and point-of-entry water filtration devices. This bill has received bipartisan support. I respectfully ask for your aye vote today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Allen. I. Anderson. I. Bates. I. Bell. I. Berryhill. I. Block. I. Canella. I. De Leon. I. Fuller. I. Gaines. I. Galgioni. I. Glazer. I. Hall. I. Hancock. I. Hernandez. I. Hertzberg. I. Hill. I. Weso. I. Huff. I. Jackson. I. Lara. Leno. I. Leva. I. Liu. I. McGuire. I. Mendoza. I. Mitchell.
Aye.
I. Monning. I. Morlock. I. Morrell. I. Wynn. Nilsson. Pan. I. Pavley. Roth. I. Runner. I. Stone. I. Vidak. I. Wykowski. I. Wolk. Wolk, aye. Nielsen, aye.
Senator Hueso moves the call. Moving on to file item 337, Assembly Bill 744. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Bill 744 by Assemblymember Chow, an act relating to housing.
Senator Wykowski.
Madam President, members, this measure addresses a constraint that makes it much more expensive to build affordable housing, much needed affordable housing in California, and that's excessive parking requirements. The average construction cost for an above ground parking space is $24,000, and a below ground parking space is $34,000. In many situations, it's public funding subsidies that are being wasted on unused and excessive parking spaces. Now, this bill reduces the minimum parking spaces on 3 types of 100% affordable housing. It allows local governments that have completed a parking study in the last 5 years that can show that they need a higher ratio. It's been significantly amended to address some of the concerns raised by local governments, and I would urge an aye vote.
Thank you. Senator Bates.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in opposition to this bill. I've heard from numerous cities and counties who are opposed because it removes their flexibility to require adequate parking at low-income developments, and ultimately it requires them to deny these developments any parking at all. It's possible that some housing projects may need less parking. That decision should be determined by city staff after careful analysis of parking impacts. Blanket prohibitions that limit local control like this bill really prevent local officials from addressing community concerns and responding to important neighborhood issues. And those of you who've been in local government know how this takes place. I have also concerns with the language in the bill exempting senior and special need housing developments from minimum parking requirements if they are within 1/2 mile of a transit center. In my district, in the city of Encinitas, it has only 1 transit center, and the radius the bill prescribes encompasses an area that already presents a parking challenge. The bill seems to presume that seniors age 62 or older, which I happen to be one of them, and I'm still driving, guys, they do not require automobiles or do not have visitors requiring parking. However, there are several senior developments in many cities, and in particular in Encinitas, and all of them are heavily dependent upon cars to meet the needs of residents and visitors. At the end of the day, this bill is another attack on local control. It may cause many spillover effects on adjacent properties, and that will certainly impact the quality of life in those neighborhoods and the livability. Local parking ordinances arise from individual community needs and preferences set forth by the priorities of those communities, and they are best entities to determine that. For these reasons, I'll be voting no on AB 744, and I ask my colleagues to do the same.
Thank you. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing none, Senator, you may close.
Thank you. This matter was held in committee so that they can take amendments, and as I intimated, there were 3 types of 100% affordable housing that are concerned here. It's the projects within 1/2 mile of a major transit stop, or seniors-only development with paratransit service, or within 1/2 mile of a bus that runs at least 8 times a day, or special needs housing developments with paratransit services within 1/2 mile of a bus that runs 8 times a day. It does allow for municipalities, if they complete a parking study within the past 7 years that shows that they need more parking, to get out of jail in this bill. It's a good bill, and we urge your aye vote.
Please call the roll.
Allen. Anderson. No, Bates. No, Bell. I, Berryhill. No, Block. I, Canella. I, DeLeon. I, Fuller. No, Gaines. No, Galgiani. Glazer. No, Hall. I, Hancock. I, Hernandez. I, Hertzberg. I, Hill. I, Hueso. I, Huff. No, Jackson. I, Lara. I, Leno. I, Leva. I, Liu. I, McGuire. I, Mendoza. I, Mitchell. Monning. I, Morlock. No, Morrell. No, Wynn. No, Nielsen. No, Pan. I, Pavley. Roth. I, Runner. No, Stone. No, Vidak. No, Wachowski. I, Wolk. Wolk, aye. Allen, aye. Canella. Canella, we have as aye. Aye to no.
Senator Wachowski moves the call. Moving on to file item 340, Assembly Bill 1303. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Bill 1303 by Assemblymember Gray, an act relating to land use and declaring the urge thereof to take effect immediately.
Senator Canella.
Thank you, Madam President. AB 1303 provides for a 24-month extension for unexpired subdivision maps in counties suffering from prolonged economic hardships as a result of the recession. During economic downturns, market conditions often prevent developers from advancing subdivision projects. If tentative maps expire before market conditions improve, developers risk losing the time and money already invested to that point. The legislature has approved a number of extensions for these maps during downturns, with the last extension set to expire at the end of this year. While many parts of the state have recovered from the recession, select counties continue to experience depressed economic conditions. If maps in these particularly vulnerable areas are allowed to expire, local communities risk losing the job growth and economic productivity needed to kick-start their economies. AB 1303 has no known opposition, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion or debate? Any discussion or debate on AB 1303? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Allen. I, Anderson. I, Bates. I, Bell. I, Berryhill. I, Block. I, Canella. I, DeLeon. I, Fuller. I, Gaines. I, Galgiani. I, Glazer. I, Hall. Hancock. I, Hernandez. I, Hall, I, Hertzberg. I, Hill. I, Hueso. I, Huff. I, Jackson. I, Lara. Leno. I, Leva. I, Liu. I, McGuire. I, Mendoza. I, Mitchell.
Aye.
I, Monning. I, Morlock. I, Morrell. I, Wynn. I, Nielsen. I, Pan. I, Pavley. Roth. I, Runner. I, Stone. I, Vidak. I, Wachowski. I, Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Senator Canella moves the call. File item 343, Assembly Bill 494. Senator Jackson, pass on file. The next series of items that we're going to take up in this order, colleagues, file item 344, 346, 350, 353, 354, and 358. Starting with file item 344, Assembly Bill 353. Senator Pavley is not at her desk. File item 346, Assembly Bill 85. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Bill 85 by Assemblymember Wilk, an act relating to state government and declaring the urge thereof to take effect immediately.
Senator Vidak.
Madam President and members, today I rise to present AB 85, which closes a loophole in the Open Meeting Act. This loophole has allowed many state boards and agencies to establish small committees with the intent to hold meetings that are not open to the public. AB 85 will close this loophole and require that all committees funded by taxpayer dollars be made public. This bill has received unanimous support throughout the process. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion or debate on this measure? Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Allen. Anderson. I. Bates. I. Bell. I. Berryhill. I. Block. I. Cannella. De Leon. I. Fuller. I. Gaines. I. Galgiani. I. Glazer. I. Hall. I. Hancock. I. Hernandez. I. Hertzberg. I. Hill. I. Wesso. I. Huff. I. Jackson. I. Lada. I. Leno. I. Leyva. I. Liu. I. McGuire. I. Mendoza. I. Mitchell.
Aye.
I. Monning. I. Morlock. I. Morrell. I. Wynn. Nielsen. I. Pan. I. Pavley. Roth. I. Runner. I. Stone. I. Vidak. I. Wykowski. I. Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Senator Vidak moves the call. File item 350, Assembly Bill 1358. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Bill 1358 by Assemblymember DeBobney and Act relating to school facilities.
Senator Wolk.
Thank you, Madam President. This bill authorizes and extends design-build authority for school districts on projects of over $1 million until 2025. This measure has earned bipartisan support. In fact, Senator Cox, of whom the lounge was named, and I jointly authored several bills expanding design-build authority over the years. This delivery method leads to accelerated project completion, cost containment, reduction of construction complexity, and a reduced risk of cost overruns for the school districts. This bill does not require school districts to utilize design-build. It simply expands the options for school construction projects. It's modeled after 785, which was authored last year by me, and applies the similar provisions that are now existing law for state and local agencies to this bill. This bill simply expands the authority to school districts, again, for projects over $1 million. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this measure? Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Allen. I. Anderson. No. Bates. No. Bell. I. Berryhill. No. Block. I. Cannella. De Leon. I. Fuller. No. Gaines. No. Galgiani. I. Glazer. Hall. I. Hancock. I. Hernandez. I. Hertzberg. I. Hill. I. Wesso. I. Huff. No. Jackson. I. Lada. I. Leno. I. Leyva. I. Liu. I. McGuire. I. Mendoza. I. Mitchell. I. Monning. I. Morlock. No. Morrell. No. Wynn. No. Nielsen. No. Pan. I. Pavley. Roth. I. Runner. No. Stone. No. Vidak. No. Wykowski. I. Wolk.
Aye.
Wolk, aye. Glazer, aye. Cannella, aye.
Senator Wolk moves the call. Moving on to file item 353, Assembly Bill 1116. Senator Leno is not at his desk. File item 354, Assembly Bill 502. Senator Hill, not at his desk. File item 358, Assembly Bill 1211. Senator Hancock, not at her desk. We'll move on to the next series of bills, colleagues, that will be taken up in this order. Actually, file items 360 through 368 are all in numeric order. We'll be taking up every bill. File items 360 through 368. File item 360, Assembly Bill 145, pass. File item 361, Assembly Bill 1081, pass on file. File item 362, Assembly Bill 355. Senator, you ready? Mr. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Bill 355 by Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia, enacting to unclaimed property.
Senator Anderson.
Senators, this bill will help veterans and their families to reclaim any military awards, as well as all our constituents to claim their U.S. savings bonds. I urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Any discussion or debate? Please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Bates. Aye. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. Aye. Block. Aye. Canella. Aye. De Leon. Aye. Fuller. Gaines. Aye. Galgiani. Aye. Glazer. Aye. Hall. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Hertzberg. Aye. Hill. Aye. Wesso. Aye. Huff. Aye. Jackson. Aye. Latta. Aye. Leno. Aye. Leva. Aye. Liu. Aye. McGuire. Aye. Mendoza. Aye. Mitchell. Aye. Monning. Aye. Morlock. Aye. Morrell. Aye. Wynn. Aye. Nielsen. Aye. Pan. Aye. Pavley. Roth. Aye. Runner. Aye. Stone. Aye. Vidak. Aye. Wachowski. Aye. Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Senator Anderson moves the call. We're going to return to file item 358. File item 358, Assembly Bill 1211. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Bill 1211 by Assemblymember Mainshine, and act relating to health facilities and declaring the urge thereof to take effect immediately.
Senator Hancock.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, AB 1211 is a bill related to congregate living health facilities, also known as CLIFs. These are residential health care facilities that give critical care to patients who no longer need a hospital stay but are too medically fragile to go to a skilled nursing home facility. Hospitals are increasingly under pressure, as we know, to stabilize patients and quickly discharge them to less acute and less expensive care facilities. Presently, demand for CLIF services is increasing beyond the capacity to provide the care. The only answer is to either modernize the number of people that can be in a facility or to build new facilities, which would be very time-consuming, difficult to place, and expensive. AB 1211 modernizes the limit on the number of beds allowed from 12 to 18 and will allow CLIFs to help meet medical demand while still maintaining a residential center, a residential setting. The bills received bipartisan support, and I would ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator. Is there any discussion or debate on this measure? Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Bates. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. Aye. Block. Aye. Canella. Aye. De Leon. Aye. Fuller. Gaines. Aye. Galgiani. Aye. Glazer. Aye. Hall. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Hertzberg. Aye. Hill. Aye. Wesso. Aye. Huff. Aye. Jackson. Aye. Latta. Aye. Leno. Aye. Leva. Aye. Liu. Aye. McGuire. Aye. Mendoza. Aye. Mitchell.
Aye.
Aye. Monning. Aye. Morlock. Aye. Morrell. Aye. Wynn. Aye. Nielsen. Aye. Pan. Aye. Pavley. Roth. Aye. Runner. Aye. Stone. Aye. Vidak. Aye. Wachowski. Aye. Wolk. Wolk, aye. Bates, aye.
Senator Hancock moves the call.